Welcome to Ravens Across the Pond, your place for everything Baltimore Ravens. From a fresh, European perspective. Plenty of laughs, plenty of piss-taking, and of course, questionable insights. Sit back, relax, grab a beer, and enjoy the show.
Welcome back, Ravens flock, to another episode of Ravens Across the Pond. We are back. We haven't done an episode since the back end of February. We've been mad busy doing other things. If you're new to the show, don't forget to hit the subscribe button, head over to X, hit the follow button. Podcast is available on Spotify and Apple Podcast. Head on over, hit the subscribe, make sure you drop a like, get in the comments. I can already see a few in the comments. Danny, Ben, DJ, thanks for joining. Nathan, DT, good to see you. How are we, gents?
Very good. Just about recovered from the draft party.
Yeah, I think I'm still tired from it, but it was a great night.
Yeah, it was. And look, I was going to start off with the draft night and go through that before we go ahead and have a look at what the Ravens did in the draft and possibly discuss some other storylines from the draft that don't regard the Ravens. However, literally 5 minutes before we came on air, some breaking news. ESPN's Adam Schefter reporting that former Cardinals and obviously Ravens and Jacksonville Jaguars defensive end Calais Campbell has returned to the Ravens on a one-year deal. Six-time Pro Bowler, entering his age 40th year, a 19-year veteran of the league, well, going into his 19th season. An experienced vet, knows everything about the Ravens. Loved his time here last time. I don't usually give this guy credit, but Josh in the WhatsApp was I think when he highlighted like his character. Before we went live, Nathan, you were having a look at. Obviously, we don't know any financials around the deal. In fact, Dean has just put in now in the chat. Thank you very much, Dean. Is expected to be in the $5.5 million range, according to Jeff Zerbeck. We were talking, weren't we, Nathan, that we think it's possibly going to be 3.5, heavily incentivized on sacks. What have we got to say on this deal, Nathan?
1 year, 5.5 was pretty much exactly what he got out of Arizona last year. So I was expecting a little bit less, but if that's the max value of the kind of contract and it's all kind of escalated up with kind of sacks and how the team performs, I'd be very surprised if the kind of signing bonus and kind of actual money for the 1 year would be around 3.5, maybe up to 4, 1.5 million incentives. And it's a lovely complimentary piece, you know. Calais knows the Ravens. He'll be great for the kind of locker room for 1 year. And he's had over 5 sacks in his last 3 seasons. So the bloke will be 40 by the time the season starts, but he's obviously not done. Bloke doesn't age.
Big fan, DT.
Yeah, he wants that ring. I mean, I loved the guy when he was here. He was kind of one of my favourite Ravens at the time, like such a great character. You could tell the team loved him, loved having him around. You know, we've got some great new talent in the defensive end, so it would be great to just have him in the room to, you know, work on those rookies, bring some of the new players in. Yeah, very exciting signing. Like just as a piece to be in the room, let alone the impact it's going to have in the snaps he plays.
Obviously, there was rumours flying around today that the Giants had Campbell on their radar. Nathan said before we went live on air, he's obviously this is his last chance to go for that ring. Why go to the Giants when you can come to a team that we all like to think and expect are going to be there or thereabouts, come playing some meaningful football in January?
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to have him last year. There was talk of it at the start of last season. Obviously, didn't quite materialise, and he was still hoping at the time he was going to retire. But he's clearly back and ready for more. So happy days, really. I mean, I do wonder. Obviously, there's been a lot of talk around Madubuike and his role in the return to fitness and those kind of tests. Obviously, any kind of help on the defensive line is always strong, but yeah, it'd be interesting to see what it means in that sense.
Nathan, anything else to add before we move on and discuss draft night?
Nah, just I think the more kind of pieces we've got to play on that front line, the better. As DT just said, it might point to Beaks not being ready for the start of the season, and maybe this is a guy that can play alongside him eventually. But maybe this is to maybe get us through the first 3 or 4 games. It could be a sign of that, but it's far too early in the process to start speculating on Beaks' availability. But as a commanding duo, it's going to be great to watch them up front.
Panda Man, the boys are indeed back. So last Thursday, we all got together, big group of us. We had this idea, I think we were kind of fairly set on the idea and what we wanted to achieve, and we set up this podcast, set up the network. So last Thursday, the Across the Pond Sports Network, Ravens Across the Pond, along with our sponsors Stacked, with the support of the Hippodrome Casino, took over Leicester Square, Draft Night London. Just, for you guys, just how good of a night was that? Obviously, it was great for us all to get together, have a beer. We had Sean Gale there, 85 winning Super Bowl with the Chicago Bears. Great to kind of sit down, have a chat with him. We had UK Samo there, we had Jess down from Paddy Power, kind of do a talk on market trends and, obviously odds on who's going where in the draft. Overall, it was a great success, and if anything, it just gives me, and I'm sure you guys the same, that we want to continue putting on these events. We were the first kind of team podcast to go and do an event like that where it was open to everyone. We had New York Jets fans down there. They were extremely loud. Pats Across the Pond boys came down, did an announcement with them. Who else did we have down there? We had Cardinals fans, we had Bears fans.
All sorts.
All sorts. It was packed. It was good to have a beer, have a little bet. Just guys, what did you think on the actual event?
Go on, DT, starts off.
I know. I was buzzing. It's one of those things. It was a lot of weeks in the work, and I don't think you ever know how these things are going to plan out and sort of play out. Sorry, but it was just great to see it all come together. Obviously, great for us to be together in person for the first time. Obviously, we've had this, relationship that we've got together as just a group of guys who love the Ravens at the end of the day, and we all knew that we loved the beer. Some of us more than others, it seemed, as the night played out. Shout out to Danzai, who's not here. But the other thing that was great to understand is that Rich is just as much of a character in person as he is online. So, the impression was even more spot on, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, the AFC East won't get a lot of love on this podcast for the rest of the year, but the Jets and Pats fans that we met were a great group. I think also shout out to the NFL for changing the draft time from 10 minutes per pick to 8 minutes, because I don't think a lot of us in that room are going to be lasting much longer than half full by the time it eventually shut down.
If anybody was to ask me who the last 10 picks were, and Liam will back this up, I wouldn't have an idea, because I was stretched out in that booth, fast asleep. I got woken up about 5 times. And look, if you don't wake up, you're gonna have to go home. And the moment the waiters walked off, I was back asleep again. Some photos from the night. There's a flick through them now, dead quick. I thought Sean Gale was fantastic. Obviously, he was on stage, did a bit of a talk. Good to get all the lads together, have a beer, before the start of the night. This is when we were all kind of we were all looking a lot better than we were come the end of the night. Nathan, this one's for you, and it also ties in. That we ask people questions before the show. So Liam messaged me in privately. He said, "I've got a question for Nathan." He said, "What was it like to share a cigar with Sean Gale and actually meet him?" I know on the night you were a bit concerned that you weren't going to meet him, but we've got photo evidence there.
I can't answer the first half of that question because you boys went AWOL, but meeting him was great. Yeah, full of insights. Had a good couple of stories. Don't know who the bloke on the right of that photo is. Never seen him before in my life, but no, thanks, Liam. Thanks for the question.
Yeah, I owe Liam a thank you as well because he guided me home. My phone had died, vape had died. I was contactless on my phone, so couldn't get a taxi anywhere. And I had the great misfortune of having to get from Leicester Square to right next to the bank station at 4:30 in the morning. Tube strikes, no tubes. It was a lot that way, and then left me on my way to go.
Sean,
Yeah,
Sean,
look,
I will say as well, Liam was obviously a gentleman, but I think Sean Gale was even more of a gentleman. Like, he kept smiling throughout the whole night and really entertaining conversations, even with Richard chewing his ear off about whiskey for about half an hour. You know, he had to put up right there. That's the smile through Rich's. Well, Sean, I can see you've got a whiskey there. I am actually a guy who's quite fond of sipping on some whiskies. Let me just tell you about some whiskies. Actually, where I'm from in Wales, there's a Welsh whiskey called Penderyn. I think you should try it. I might get you a bottle if we could meet up again some other time. It was non-stop, but he was smiling throughout. So an absolute gentleman is Sean Gale.
Yeah, no, he was superb. I mean, look, and Nathan, I'm not. This isn't to rub you in, but this is just to give people like an idea of the guy. Obviously, me and DT went up and met him before he came down to do his talk. We just had like a moment, sat there with him having a whiskey and a cigar, and I kind of took the opportunity because I like this player an awful lot. I think he's got a great future in the game. I think he could do wonders for the Bears. But it was interesting to ask him kind of like the shift in kind of locker room and the mentality and the personality of players from now to 1985. I remember asking him like, how would the '85 Bears locker room deal with like a personality and a talent like Caleb Williams, and just being able to sit and him giving insight on how the mentality works, and an elite athlete, a guy who has won it all, being successful in business since he retired, and we were able to bounce ideas off. He was really interested in what we were doing, what we were doing with the network, and I think anytime you get an opportunity to speak to people like that, you have to try and tap into their mentality. I think it was. He said that DT in regards to Caleb Williams, like, look, they would have allowed it, but you make a mistake, then that's where this stops now, and it's all eyes on business. And I just haven't got enough positive words to say about Sean Gale, Super Bowl winner Sean Gale.
Yeah, I mean, you've had these events before. You see them where people come and they get them in there for a name and they do a bit of a talk and then a few photos and that's it. But he was just. The whole night was just, I don't know what time he was contracted to be honest, but he seemed to be sat there a lot longer than I thought he would do. He was just kind of sat there with other fans. I looked around, he was sat with the Jets guys for ages, just sat with other fan bases, like just having a chat and watching the draft.
Yeah. Ollie giving it big licks in the chat there. Ollie, it'd be nice to see you on your own podcast once in a while, mate. So, I mean, let's move on to talking about the actual draft itself. In fact, no, before I do that, guys, there is going to be more events coming. Whether we do one for kind of NFL opening weekend, take over somewhere in London again, something that I'll sit down, talk with the lads, see what we want to do. Obviously, we've got London games, college games, September the 19th at Wembley. There is a group of us going down there. We're going to try and get more of us down there. So yeah, it's an exciting, from a Ravens podcast point of view, it's an exciting time. From Sports Network point of view, it's even more of an exciting time. We've got 13, 14 new podcasts joining us. Unfortunately, the AFC North rivals, the Steelers across the pond crew, they got their first podcast out last night. So hopefully by the start of the season, we'll have the whole league covered on the network, and then that enables us to do league-wide events up and down the country, and build a community that is open to one and all. So we're really looking forward to that. Right, enough of that spiel. Ravens draft, we all knew what was needed, the concerns going into the draft. I know before the draft we had a moment up on stage, the group of us, where we were just talking about where do you think the Ravens would go, and I think it's Dickie was extremely set on the, they were going to go guard, draft Vega Ione, with the 14th pick in the first round. I know the likes of me, DT, Nathan, I can't remember where you were. We were kind of like, do we want to be spending a first on a guard after what we've just been through with Tyler Lindenbaum? And obviously the stuff that comes later on down in the career with how the franchise tag works and all that for obviously the O-line. Was that going to happen? I was firmly set on that if Ruben Bain was going to slide as was predicted because of everything that came out about him, in the run-up to the draft, if he was there at 14, then at the time I think you've got to take him. Just so obviously everyone knows what went on for the Ravens during the draft. This little video was taken by our good friends at the Pats Across the Pond crew, which I think they seem to enjoy a couple of our reactions. Just take a look.
I don't know this is as much for the commission. With the 14th pick in the 2026 NFL Draft, the Baltimore Ravens select Olai Babenga.
You can clearly see there that me, DT, and Nathan weren't overly enthused by that pick. Whereas, Richard, who unfortunately can't be here tonight, Liam, were obviously made up with that pick. Look, obviously, when I'd sobered up and I'd come down to the way I think on the next day, the Ravens taking Vega Ione, guard from Penn State, in the first round with pick 14 was absolutely the right move. It was a clear agenda this year that you protect Lamar Jackson after, some of the struggles last year. Now you've had time to think about it first and foremost. What do you think of that first pick?
Ultimately, it was the right thing to do, but it wasn't the sexy, fun pick that could have happened, and it's so narrative driven. And I think we all saw Ruben Bain falling, and I think we all started singing his name to the tune of "Zombie" by the Cranberries, which probably didn't help. Although that wasn't on video, so that's great. Look, ultimately, the Ravens had a very good draft, and I think it's telling that we go out to draft a guard and we actually draft a guard. The two teams in front of us that drafted tackles have announced that they'll both be playing at guard this year, which is baffling. If you want a guard, get a guard. And I think we actually got the best guard probably available. Well, definitely the best guard available. So, but it might not have been sexy, but it's clearly what the Ravens were going for the whole time, and who's to argue against kind of how they draft. And you just got to trust it that it's the right thing to do. And maybe Ruben Bain will go off to have a Hall of Fame career. Maybe he'll get 10 sacks this year, and but if Lamar isn't getting sacked, I don't think I'll mind as much.
Yeah, DT, this is the first time ever that the Baltimore Ravens have selected an interior lineman in the top half of the draft. Obviously, the theme for this offseason was to protect quarterback Lamar Jackson. Signing guard John Simpson was your first free agent signing on the offensive side of the ball. For then the Ravens to go and use the first pick on Ione, I was considered by far away the top guard in the draft, taking him over, obviously, edge rusher Ruben Bain, and some lads linked with tight end Kenyon Sadiq out of Oregon, obviously with losing likely and Charlie Cole this year, and obviously kind of restricted to what we could do on the tight end front in regards to free agency signing and trying to extend the two tight ends in Maine because of the the deal that Mark Andrews got. One thing that is for certain is that the Ravens have picked 11 times previously in the top half of the first round. 9 of them have turned into Pro Bowl players. Al Hammond was the last one in 2022 to do that. So he's a day one start, isn't he, Vega Ione for the Ravens?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, not only because of our gaping hole in the position, vacated by everyone's favourite Daniel Falele, but no, it was obviously a huge need, and I'd have no doubt he'll be a Pro Bowler, particularly with what we'll no doubt see he allows Lamar Jackson to do. I mean, obviously those that followed our socials will have seen my reaction to the pick live. I was on social for the night and I was filming that as it happened. It wasn't the pick I wanted at the time. I at the time was thinking, right, there's going to be some guards that we can get later in the draft that will be good enough, and I thought Ruben Bain would have been the better pick to pair with it. But actually, I also will hold my hands up and say Richard in his infinite wisdom was right. As it played out, there was a huge number of offensive linemen taken in the first round, like way more than I would have expected, way more than anyone would have predicted, really. So we wouldn't have got someone decent enough in the later rounds. Whereas actually we've taken a very good edge in the second round and we've got a great lineman. So I'm actually, very happy with that. And I think that pairing is better than we would have got the other way around. So yeah, I'm confident we'll see Ioane go on to be, and I'm going to pronounce his name correctly because despite me correcting you several times on the night, Tom, his name is Venga Ioane, not Vega Lione, whatever you want to say. But yeah, Venga Ioane is going to be a Pro Bowler for us, no doubt about it.
Look, obviously, you just reading into some of the stats last year, Lamar Jackson was pressured on 37.1% of his dropbacks, the worst rate of his 8-year career. Solely down to the play of Daniel Falele and Andrew Foyes. It's a significant upgrade already on them two, with Ione coming in. The last 3 offensive linemen drafted by the Ravens in the first round, Michael, how do you pronounce his name? Michael O'Hare, Ronnie Stanley, and Tyler Linderbaum all started immediately. Just looking at Ione's career, he allowed 2 sacks in 1,106 pass blocking plays in his Penn State career. Obviously, his strength is creating holes in the run game, but he is going to give Lamar Jackson more time. I think it's an excellent pick, and hats off. On to round 2, pick 45. So the Ravens chose Zion Young, offensive outside linebacker from Missouri. Again, this isn't a surprise to me that Zion Young was the first defensive player drafted by Jesse Minter in his role as head coach in this organization. I think you look at the addition of Trey Hendrickson in free agency. We know the whole storyline behind that. If you feel sorry for Max Crosby, feel sorry for him. Not my fault that his knees are made of plasticine. Drafted Mike Green last year, second round. Should have been a first rounder, but again, things that came out about him in the run to the draft meant he slid to the second round, slid to the Ravens. I think Young gets on the field quickly here. Again, excels at setting the edge against the run, and he can put as much pressure on the quarterback with his speed, which is, best friends with Nate Wiggins. I think this is a great fit. It's the kind of player that a Jesse Minter defense, kind of lives and breathes for.
Yeah, I mean, I find it funny how with new head coach, we were kind of wondering, is there going to be a new approach to the draft? And it ended up playing out to be like one of the most quintessential Baltimore Ravens drafts you're ever going to get. You go with the best player you think you've got available in the first round. You then take your second round pick on a bit of a prospect edge position. And then after that, you kind of go after wide receivers. And another draft where we take 2 tight ends in the same one. So the more things change, the more things stay the same. I like this pick. And I think it makes more sense given the Calais Campbell signing today, you're really building that kind of front, kind of seven now, and you're really looking at what these guys can do. They're going to be kind of coming on, coming off. It's not going to be like every down. You might turn to an every down player. I expect his kind of first year to be a bit rotational, being a bit of a specialist, kind of what he does and developing on. If him and Green can really kick on over the next 2 years, then Baltimore, I think, are really going to have a really solid pass rush over the next couple of seasons. They've kind of build that defense back up.
Yeah, I'm buzzing for it, to be fair. I'm quietly excited about our defense this year. I mean, we spent a load of draft picks on defense. We've got obviously huge changes from a coaching perspective, defensively especially. This pick in itself, so Mike Green from last year, I reckon his production is going to skyrocket this year comparatively. Getting more snaps, having someone like Hendrickson in to really bring them up together as well. It's setting us up for an exciting season and an exciting future beyond that as well.
Yeah, you look at what Young, obviously there was his draft call and everything. He is a character. Even in his ex bio, it says he's a hellraiser. Just a quote from him: "Look, as a young and I was taught smash mouth football. I'm looking forward to bringing the Super Bowl back to Baltimore, whatever it takes. I'll be the kicker." Yeah, as long as you can keep it on the inside of the post. Last kick in the game against the Steelers, that's fine. Look, he led the SEC last year with 18 tackles for a loss. Well known our struggles, like the Ravens struggles last year on pass rush. Only 30 sacks, tied for the second worst in franchise history. He had his 26 tackles at or behind the line of scrimmage in 2025, were the second most in the SEC. They're getting a player. We've said it before, especially last year, kind of like to play like a Raven. What is this? Like, that identity is kind of missing. I think obviously with the acquisition of head coach Jesse Minter, the coaches also brought in by Jesse, and then some of these players, Mike Green going into his second year, Malachi Starks going into his second year, the pick of Young. They are now building a defense where in a year or two's time you're thinking this is going to be a top 5 defense in the league, especially with the way Jesse Minter coaches defense. Outstanding. In the third round, the 80th selection overall in the third round, the Ravens went wide receiver Jacoby Lane out of USC. Just the thoughts on this one before, obviously, I have my say.
So I don't think anyone expected us to take him. I think if people said Ravens going to take a receiver, I think there are several players that people would have picked before Lane. However, having looked at tape following the draft, having read various reports, I can see why we took him. We lost in Likely that big target in the end zone. Likely was always our guy that if he's in competition, have numerous players around him, he's a tall guy that can reach and grab the ball. That's what Lane is. Lane is a big body, tall receiver. He's going to be that target for those sort of downs. He's going to be the replacement for Likely in that sort of scenario. And I think he had something that we didn't have at the moment. So actually, I think he's a strong addition. And I think, we've already got Zay Flowers, we've already got Bateman, who everyone's favourite Marmite topic of Bateman, but he's a player. And with Lamar Jackson having more time to find him, we know how much separation he gets. We've got a solid receiving room, and this just adds another depth for certain key plays where we think there's going to be a bit of crowd.
Yeah, he's just a different kind of receiver that you need to have in the room. He's 6'4", which Zay Flowers definitely is not. So while you've got Zay Flowers taking the top off people or running different routes, this is a guy that if you just need to put it up there and get him there, then he can definitely be that kind of player. I know there was a lot of people kind of annoyed about how little we were using Hopkins during his time in Baltimore, and I'm not suggesting that this guy's going to be anywhere near the talent level that D-Hop ever got to, but he's got that kind of frame and that kind of just, aura of you can kind of put it up there and he'll get his hands to at least challenge it. And if he develops like people hoping, then he's going to be another great complementary piece to an offense, which hopefully might not be relying on constant two tight end receiver sets, and maybe we start to show a bit of just changing up what the offense can be. If you can go out there with four wide receivers, the defense don't necessarily know what you're going to do. If you're constantly playing out there with two tight end sets, it gets a bit predictable. So I think it's just another tool that Lamar's going to have to keep defenses on their toes.
I think it's also a pick that is going to take a lot of pressure off Zay Flowers this year. Look, secondary highs last year: 86 catches, 1,211 yards receiving. In stark comparison to that, the other Baltimore Ravens wide receivers combined for just 51 receptions and 735 yards. He's a big fella. Jacoby Lane replaces DeAndre Hopkins, and I also think he is going to be competing with Rashard Bateman for that number 2 spot in the wide receiver room. I really, really, really do like this pick. The only issue is. The only slight concern is, we've seen it's kind of been a running joke with although albeit not a funny joke with the Ravens in regards to fumbles and drop catches, which is kind of, being one of the biggest pandemics for the Ravens since COVID. Is the fact that he's dropped 11 passes since 2024, tied for the most in the Big Ten Conference. So when you look at that, and obviously the issues we have, to coin a phrase from our Brazilian friend Chris, lettuce hands. That is the one concern I have around them. But look, as I say, I really, really do like the pick. And when you look at that, obviously, DT, as you said, if you'd said before the draft that the Ravens are going to take a wide receiver, people would probably pull a weird face. So we're saying that, pick a wide receiver in the 3rd round. Then in the 4th round, the Ravens back up on the board with 115th overall selection. They take wide receiver Elijah Sarrett out of Indiana. Obviously, won a Natty last year. Mendoza is a QB. Obviously, Mendoza went 1st overall. Wasn't a surprise. This is a guy. He's not lightning quick, but he has shown that he excels in the red zone. And again, is that something where, as you say, with kind of what likely could offer in the end zone as a tight end, and it's just another target for Lamar Jackson to find in the end zone, which obviously was a huge struggle last year. Again, you can put that down to offensive line. But now you look at it, you've gone through the first 4 rounds of the NFL draft. You've addressed the offensive line. You've brought in another great talent in defense, and then you've gone, right, let's get two wide receivers here who have got strength and power and a clutch in the end zone.
Yeah, I think he's also one of those ones that he can offer a lot across the middle as well. We saw, obviously, recently, it used to be Mark Flowers was our chain-moving guy. Zay Flowers has been that guy in the middle. Like, one of this guy's strengths, Sarah's strength, is that separation from route running. He's doesn't get separation from speed like Zay does or tricky moves, but he's great at route running. And if we can get him and Zay running different routes across the middle, when we need to move the chains and get those short yardage completions, like, that's where I can see this guy coming in clutch as well. Just getting the ball out to him, cracking on, then being able to kind of carry on playing. I think that's where we're going to see him really, really excel.
Nathan?
Yeah. I think you talk about the Ravens' approach to drafting, and these are the guys that kind of at the top of the board. They offer different things. I think if you asked the Ravens who they'd like to have had available at that kind of 3rd round spot, they probably would have told you they'd have liked a couple of the centers maybe still there, but they were very overdrafted at the kind of top middle of the 2nd round, so they weren't in play at that kind of draft spot. So you go out and you go back to your board and you take 2 different wide receivers who can both offer very different things, and again, just that variety that they're going to bring to an offense that really needed it. They were relying so much last year on kind of just doing the same things over and over again, and it kind of stopped working. So being able to throw up a load of different routes, different systems, having guys in the same kind of personnel, but then you can get different kind of formations and routes out of it is going to be really important. And I think that's what Declan Doyle is going to try and incorporate in this year, and just kind of have a bit more of kind of confusion to the kind of the offense, the opposing defenses about what we're actually going out to do, and just having all of these different receivers that can do different things can only help Lamar as well. So yeah, just hope to see just a bit more variety and just a bit more of a good show this year.
Yeah, look, as DT touched on, how good he is at getting separation through his route running. His own dad nicknamed him Waffle House because he's always open. He led the FBS last year with 15 touchdown catches. Again, it shows that the Ravens are addressing issues from last year. Pass catches, Ravens wide receivers combined altogether for 137 receptions last year, which out of 32 NFL teams, where did that rank the Ravens?
Bottom.
DT?
I mean, not far off that.
30th. This is all. It's also the first time, little trivia one for you. Yeah, this is the first time since 2021 that the Ravens have selected multiple wide receivers in the same draft. Who were those two wide receivers?
Would you say 2021?
Since 2021, yeah.
Who did we draft in 2021?
That wasn't. Was that Bateman?
Yeah.
DT's got one.
Bateman was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
And the other was one of the late round guys. It would have been. Was it? What's his name? Used to be our punt returner up until a couple of seasons ago.
Couldn't catch an airborne flu in a Chinese food market.
Yeah.
Personally, I can't even think of late round 2023 receivers.
Tylen Wallace.
Smooch.
And it's also a homecoming for Charlotte. Obviously, he went to high school, St. Francis Academy in Baltimore. So back in Charm City, Right, moving on to the fifth. Staying in the fourth round. Sorry.
It would have been a fifth. We traded up, didn't we?
Yeah. With so obviously they traded up. So they said the Ravens sent their fifth round pick, number 154, and a sixth round selection in 2027 to get back into the fourth round. Again, addressing another area, of losing Isaiah Likely, losing Charlie Kohler in the off season. They selected tight end. Why is that not going up? Tight end Matt Hidner out of SMU with 133rd pick overall. Clearly, it's a guy the Ravens wanted. We've just discussed what they did to get back in there. He's recorded 8 touchdowns over the last 2 seasons, which is ranked second amongst ACC tight ends. Again, it was needed to add depth. Yeah, my thing's playing up here. Sorry. Again, this is a guy who's been used. He's been used all over the field when he was in college. He had 250. He had at least 250 snaps at running back, slot receiver, and tight end. He was the 10th tight end though taken in this year's draft. It's just again, views on this pick. I like it. Again, it was needed. Clearly, they like him. They've seen something.
Not all tight ends are born the same. This is the receiving, the pass catching tight ends. So this is more of a likely pick. Josh Cuevas is going to be more of your Charlie Kohler type, and I think they're both very good. My favorite thing about this pick was the announcement. Some sensational shit talking from the Ravens International Fan of the Year against the Steelers postseason. So shout out on that one. But yeah, Matt Hibner is going to be another nice addition. We don't know how long Andrews really is for the world, but yeah, I think another guy they're going to try and develop, and we'll just see where it goes from there. But yeah, happy with the pick.
Yeah, he's meant to have good hands, so certainly not let his hands, to coin Chris's phrase again, seeing as he's now joined the YouTube. Yeah. So, Chris, you might have missed Tom shouting you out, not only at getting to meet you on draft night, but also for your let his hands phrase. So, yeah,
I mean, just one thing as well, and I can't believe I haven't done this, because when I was shouting you out for your Brazilian quote of lettuce hands and saying how good it was to meet you at the draft, I can't believe I forgot to give you the biggest shout out, probably the biggest achievement from any Raven fan over the weekend. Absolutely smashing the London Marathon and getting your 6 majors done. So, look, from everyone across Ravens across the pond, thank you very much for obviously making the journey across to Leicester Square to catch the draft with us, have a meal. But yeah, well done on the race, mate, and obviously running for a great cause. So appreciate you. Off into the fifth round now. Pick with the 162nd selection overall. Ravens select cornerback Chandler Rivers out of Duke. Have the Ravens now got their slot cornerback?
I hope so. You know, he's a small guy, but he's scrappy. From what I hear, I mean, I'm not the college expert, but everything I watched, there's some good tape on him. There's some good highlights that you can search up. But you know, a lot of reports around his size, but he doesn't play like his size. He's scrappy. He gets involved. He's always sniffing at the ball, from what I can see. So, yeah, happy to have him as an addition. To be honest, the Ravens are always going to draft a cornerback, and it seems like he's going to be a good one for us.
And yeah, another guy, a bit like defenders we've been taking across the board, seems to be a guy that could really be coached up very nicely under under Jesse Minter. So yeah, take the guys who are raw and you try and develop him. I mean, playing in the Ravens secondary can only help him. Yeah. And if a fifth round pick turns into a starting slot corner, then you definitely can't complain. Very good business.
Yeah. Eight turnovers in his last 2 seasons he forced. So, you know, he knows what to do, and we need those turnovers if last season's anything to go by. So we'll take that all day long.
Yeah, since the start of 2022, he is the only FBS quarterback with at least 20 pressures and 20 pass breakups. Obviously, he's available in the fifth. Like I said, he's only 5'9", second shortest quarterback at the combine, but he's lightning quick. Ran a 40 in a 4.4, third fastest time among cornerbacks. And again, it's secondary help that the Ravens need. The Ravens allowed 4,214 passing yards last year, which was the third most in the NFL season. Josh, I'll let you. Nathan, I'll let you pronounce this chap's second name. Staying in the fifth, 11 picks later with the 173rd pick overall. The Ravens go for another tight end.
Josh Cuevas.
Aren't they crisps?
Yeah. Blocking tight end. You know, we'll skip through. We'll try and get through these as quick as we can. Third most blocking snaps without a blown block among power conference tight ends. He increased his production as a pass catcher last year. Career highs of 37 catches for 411 yards and 4 touchdowns. Again, kind of this is the fourth time in team history that the Ravens selected multiple tight ends in the same draft. The last time this occurred was in 2022. Who were they?
Isaiah Likely and Charlie Kolar.
Correct.
I can do them
like this. This one now. If I'm led to, obviously, I haven't really checked up on this one. But this is a pick that the owner made.
Oh, Lord, Steve Biscotti. Owner on the mark is better than everybody. That making draft picks, hopefully.
But in the fifth round, 174th pick overall, Ravens select running back Adam Randall. He's huge, 6'2", 232 pounds. Huge playmaker. One of 4 players in Clemson history to with at least 750 rushing yards and 750 yards receiving in the same season. During CJ Spiller went in the first round, Travis Etienne Jr., previous first round pick, and Travis Zachary, who had previously gone undrafted. Injuries are a concern with Randall, tore an ACL in April 2022. broke his left hand in 2023, stress fracture in his toe in 2024. Going to compete, isn't he, with Rasheen Ali, the team's number 3 running back. And he has a lot of experience in returning kickoffs.
With that injury history, he sounds like a Raven already. And Bisciotti clearly knows that. The video of the phone call between him and the owner was released today on Raven socials. So if you've not seen that, give it a go. Bisciotti seems very fired up to have him play for the Ravens. So who can argue with that?
I mean, I think if the size and the speed is anything to go by, like that kick return could be a power. We've not been able to nail that properly for a couple of seasons, really. So, we've got some players there, but I think with obviously Keaton going, having someone else that we can bring into kick returns is going to be a good option.
Yeah, dropping down now into the 6th round. Another need that the Ravens needed after losing Jordan Stout in the off-season.
The most important pick of the draft.
With the 211th pick overall, the Ravens select punter Ryan Eckley out of Michigan State. First punter selected in the draft. Obviously, front runner to replace Jordan Stout. Obviously, he was an all-pro. Signed with the Giants in free agency. He's got Ryan Eckley is a booming leg. 48.5 yards average per punt last season, which is the highest among FBS players with at least 10 points. He also placed 20 punts inside the 20-yard line in 2025. 4th punter to be drafted in Ravens history. The others were Dave Zastrodil in 2002. Obviously, one of my favourite kind of surprise Ravens players. Sam Cock in 2006, and Jordan Stout. Stout obviously became Pro Bowlers.
You just said the word cock there for absolutely no reason twice. First one was named Sam Cook, and then you just randomly dropped it into another sentence.
So that's now the guard Calais Campbell as well, and now Sam Cook. Fantastic. And we've got another tricky name coming up as well in the 7th.
I do feel sorry for our punter, Ryan Eckley, though. I mean, it must be horrible to know that you're not going to have to punt at all and just play for a team that's never going to punt because they're just going to score touchdowns for fun. So, poor guy. Not going to get to use that huge booming leg of his. Booming leg, I said. Richard, if you're listening.
Right. Dropping down into the 7th now, the last 2 picks of the draft. I know an apology for the last one because I haven't even done a banner for you, so I'm sorry. The 250th pick overall, Ravens select defensive tackle Rashawn Benny. Interesting one because he reunited with Jesse Minter. He was obviously Michigan's defensive coordinator in 2022 and 2023. Only a starter for 1 year. Obviously, he provides depth on the defensive front and brings level of consistency. He's only missed 2 tackles since the start of 2023. His 19% tackle rate over that span ranks as the best in the Big Ten and 3rd in the FBS. Again, only the 3rd defensive player drafted by the Ravens this year.
Yeah, I mean, that was, a surprise, but, it's a 7th round pick. I think it's a solid pick. I think solid rotational piece in an area where we have uncertainty anyway. We certainly did, less so with the Calais Campbell pickup, but, we need to play the D2. It's going to be a good rotational pick. Can't be saying much more, really.
Him and Calais Campbell size up very similarly. They're both 6'3", 6'4", and they both weigh the best part of 300 pounds. So I wonder if Calais might have come in as a development kind of opportunity to help this guy out. Maybe see if there's anything extra he could get out of him. But yeah, Mint has worked with him. So again, it's a 7th rounder. You don't really expect to see a lot out of these guys when we see what he does in the preseason, and he'll be fighting for a roster spot in what is now quite a crowded frontline room. So yeah, we'll have to see how that ends up for him.
Your apology. There's no banner for you. With the 253rd pick overall, the Ravens' last pick of the draft, they selected guard Evan Beerston.
That'll do. It's
Yeah.
probably something.
Oh, I like Diggy. Evan Beerston, guard out of Northwestern. Obviously, the Ravens started the draft taking an interior offensive lineman, and they've ended it with taking another interior offensive lineman. A lot of people think he has the potential to move to centre. Ravens desperately need a centre after losing Tyler Linderbaum in free agency. You know, he's played right guard. He's made 43 starts at that spot over the last 3 years. You know, he's old and savvy as well. I say old and savvy. He's 26. He was one of the oldest prospects in the draft, so he's 26 in September. You know,
Wow.
yeah.
I mean, yeah, if he can kick inside, it's going to be an interesting battle to see who the Ravens centre is going to be. I
can't see this guy being centre. Like, I mean, I know he's got a bit of experience. I think we've got a few players now that can compete for that role. I don't think this guy's going to be high up on there. I think, you know, he's a body to have. If he makes the roster, it'll be a special teams player. I can see, you know, Ben Cleveland, B2. No, that's very poor insulting to poor Evan. You know, it's depth really, isn't it? And let's say, you know, that centre position is up for competition. We haven't got anyone that stands out there at the moment. We made one off-season pickup. We've got this guy. We've got a couple in the UDFAs. It's up for competition so far. Like, I think we'll probably end up making another move there as well.
Yeah. To round up finishing our draft talk, then obviously we'll do an episode probably either over the weekend or early next week on like the UDFAs and, you know, see what's been going on at the Castle. How would you grade the Ravens draft?
Oof. I mean, incredibly solid. I don't think it's A tier because it just lacks that the sexy pick. I mean, when you're starting at 14, no one's ever going to give you an A. But I'll throw him right now, give him a nice B plus. Do you know what? Out of all the drafts I've seen, I've had a look at the total classes. Out of the 32 teams, we're definitely a top half draft, maybe 10th or 11th out of everyone. They're very impressive.
I'm maybe slightly purple tinted glasses, but I think A minus. I think the players that we've added were players in positions of need. Like you said, not sexy, but what they're going to do for our team will elevate it much more than some of the other players would have done. You know, you look at the state we were in last year. What these players will give us, gives us an A minus grade, I'd say, in the draft. You know, we've got some players that are going to make instant impact. We've got players that are really savvy picks that are going to develop into great players, I think. And we're creating competition for other players who are already in the roster to really kind of push on. So I think overall, you know, see how it plays out, but I'm incredibly happy with the draft.
Yeah, I was stuck. So I was on the Southern Roots radio show the other night with Meg, who covers the NFL, the Falcons, you know, stupendously well. And it was a pleasure to be on her show. She's also joining the network, bringing Fourth and Falcons on. And I was saying on there, I'm in between like an A and a B plus. So, you know, but I don't think I can. I'm more inclined to go B. I don't think I can go for like an A minus. I think B plus.
Only there was a grade in between an A and a B plus.
But I just can't bring myself to go A minus. I just don't think it's quite there.
B plus plus.
Yeah. Yeah.
If one of the two centres had dropped into the third round, I think that would have been enough to put over the edge.
I think that's the gap in the centre. But he said, didn't he, that like it didn't players that he had on his eye on they were taken, and he wasn't going to just get a centre for the sake of appeasing everyone who thinks we should get a centre. I mean, I'm curious by the undrafted pickup, Nick Dawkins. You know, he played in the same O line as Ioane. Like that in itself.
For next episode.
You know, that's just a little preview there for the next episode when we talk through the DFAs and see how that plays out. But I'm excited by that potential as a competitor for centre. But we'll see what we do in the remaining off season.
We've summed up the Ravens draft night. I think it's fair to say when you look at the draft as a whole, I think everybody going into that draft knew where the talent drop off was. Around about pick 20 on down. There was people were expecting there to be an awful lot of trades in the draft. And fucking hell, boy, was there. I look at the one thing I liked about how the Ravens kind of went about this draft was when you look at what was going on ahead of them. Obviously, the Dolphins picking, the Chargers trading up. Both of them had also been mocked to go guard as well. So I think when the Ravens are looking to go Dolphins are on the clock here, I think it just felt really nice that the Ravens didn't panic. EDC did what he does better, just let the ball come to him. What would you say was the biggest shock of the first round?
I mean, no one had Ty Simpson going to the Rams, did they? I think
that was it. Like, a reaction at the time was said it all. And then there was some weird stuff that came out after that as well.
Even Sean McVay looked a bit shocked in some of the things afterwards, which he's had to come out and kind of backtrack on. I'm sure they knew exactly what they were trying on. But the shocking thing about it is, I just don't see a world in which they couldn't have traded back to like the 20 spots and up to get him. And I couldn't see a world where no one wanted to trade up to the 13 spot with them, knowing that kind of there was going to be a run on kind of the rest of the talent. Like the guards were about to go, Sadiq was about to go, Reuben Bain, was a couple of picks from going, and then we kind of got into corners and a few more tackles positions. So yeah, the Rams obviously really believe in him, and he's probably going to be at least a year out from starting because Stafford's just come off an MVP season, which makes it even weirder. Like why don't you trade back and then sort it out?
I think your immediate reaction to it is this is weird, and again I said this on the Southern Roots show the other night with Meg. But when you look at it, first and foremost, the job of a general manager is to protect the organisation and build a team, sustain a team, build the best team possible. If you're a good GM, other GMs don't know what that fucking means. And I just look at the shit. You just got to have a look at the situation at the Rams. Obviously, Matt Stafford, granted, coming off an MVP season. But you look at Sean McVay is at the end of his contract at the end of this year. There's been rumours since the back end of last season, that he might not stay and extend. Matt Stafford, could this be his last year? I think, is he out of contract at the end of the year as well with the Rams? So you look at it as a GM and you go, Sean McVay might not be here next year. Matt Stafford, he might not be here next year, or he might be past his sell-by date. And then you look at the draft capital you gained last year and the draft capital that you might have in 2027. They got the extra pick for this year because of the move that they made last year with the Falcons. So you look at it and go, next year in a QB heavy, where a lot of people are saying generational talent in the 2027 draft for QBs, they're going to go early doors. If the Rams are predicting and the metrics and everything goes their way, I see the Rams having a first round pick between 28 and 32. So your opportunity to get a QB then.
I think that's probably it. I think it's
isn't it as great?
It's the best chance they're going to get getting a good QB.
Yeah.
I think that's it. I think they're not going to have that kind of pick or the opportunity to without spending some money to get one. So, or some capital even.
And obviously, the one concern with Ty Simpson is his floor level is astronomical. There is no doubt of his talent at a floor level, but there is some serious doubt about his ceiling. So. The various things that makes it surprising, but I think when you look at it and dice it up and dissect it, maybe the biggest shock is that they felt the need to trade up to 13 to take him. Probably still would have been on the board. Where were the Rams meant to be picking there?
That was their pick.
Oh, did they not trade up?
No, I think that was
no.
No,
'Cause
but it was the pick that he got. It was
Yeah.
the pick that he got from obviously the draft capital last year and the move that they made. But yeah, and
Everyone
then
had them locked to take a wide receiver, didn't they? So it was even more shocking that not only did they not help out Matt Stafford even more this year, that they kind of just went, well, do you know, we're probably going to draft your replacement, but don't worry about it.
yeah, it's good fun seeing the Steelers get fucked over. However, didn't ever imagine that the Eagles and Cowboys, would be willing to do a trade together.
I mean,
Yeah.
thank you, Philly. I mean, that must have been hilarious because they're always filming. I mean, you'll never see that get released from Pittsburgh's side, where they're like, "Oh, Mackay's like, I've got to hang up. I'm getting another phone call quickly," and then suddenly
what was it? I think it was a case of the Philly were trying to ring him, weren't they, to say, "Look, we're going to trade up and take it," but they couldn't get through to him because he was on the phone to the Steelers. The Steelers were saying that, "Look, Dallas are on the clock."
No one
We're gonna
expected Dallas to trade with Philly, and everyone knew Dallas weren't going to take a wide receiver. So,
and again, into the conspiracy theory in the NFL go hand in hand. That has got to have come out somewhere. The links between Mike McCarthy, Dallas, and the connections there. Is it? Do you think it's just as innocent as somebody has just heard something and gone, Steelers are going to take Mikhail Lemon here and send it to someone at the Eagles, and the Eagles are going, whoa, we need to move here because it just totally came out of the blue. Like Steelers were on the phone to him, getting ready to, put the pick in.
Yeah, it must be a last minute thing. Whether they got rumors of like someone else they like potentially go in, like, and this was the pick they needed to make, then something, lit a fire under them. Love to know. I would love to see, how that played out. I would have loved to have been a fly in the wall on both rooms, but
the Steelers won't be
hilarious
wide receiver at all, and why would you?
No.
They've got DK. They just picked up the trade in the off season for Pittman, so their room's looking quite decent. So for them to splash out in the first round, it would have been a bit of a surprise, but obviously something in the building must have known something for Philly to then make the decision. I think this rubber stamps from Philly's perspective that AJ Brown is not going to be an Eagle by the start of the season. I think it's just
And is it 1st of June?
Yeah, I don't know why. I guess they want to wait till 1st of June for the cap, but they don't want to announce it in case he injures himself or something like that. I guess is the thing. So everyone knows it's going to happen as long as he doesn't injure himself doing some stupid off-season antics. Then
which is very possible.
Yeah,
which is very possible.
Look, we will be back next. We'll be back early next week. We'll be back into at least one episode a week up until the start of pre-season. Then we'll go back to doing 2. It's been good to be back. Look, YouTube at Ravens Across the Pond. Head on over, hit the subscribe, hit the follow, and comment like button on Spotify and Apple. X, Ravens Across the Pond, our network, Across the Pond Sports Network. Again, all the socials are the same. Head on over there. If you'd like to subscribe, there's some major things happening on the network. Look, all that's left for me to say is I'm Thomas, they've been Nathan and DT. Together we've been Ravens Across the Pond, and we'll see you on the next one. Thank you very much for joining us.
Pleasure, everyone. See you next week.
Thanks for listening to Ravens Across the Pond. We'll see you next time.